You're on the road beyond. I'm Todd Duplantis. Welcome Facebook Live and YouTube. Good to have you with us on the shows tonight. We've got a great second episode of the show lined up for you. Before we get to our guest, Ike McFadden, my co-host as always. You know, Ike, serious thought though, we didn't discuss this on the last show, but you know, people around the country are getting sick again. And it's something we need to look at. And I wanted to get your thoughts on it because it's scary times once again we're going through.
I could babble about that ad infinitum. I'll try to be brief. Europe is usually 2 to 4 weeks ahead of us. So you can usually get an idea of what's coming here by just looking at them. And generally speaking, it looks like cases are up, but hospitalizations and fatalities are not. So I think we're going to be okay.
It's just, this could be the new normal because we've had a few variants pop up already. We're now in the Delta variant, which in Houston has really got thrown the city in the wrench. But you could just see more variants popping up over the next couple of years. This could be our new normal, folks. Wearing masks, getting vaccinations, boosters. It could be the new normal.
Yeah, well, I assume if we want it to be that. But I mean, it really depends on how much we want to concentrate on this. It remains, for most people, a fairly manageable thing. And, hopefully everyone will be okay.
All right. Ike McFadden's with us. Of course, Pete, our producer, Pete Haviland. Good evening, Pete.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
We're doing good. We've got, I'm very excited about this next guest because we've covered the stories that he's been involved with, particularly Ed and Lorraine Warren, extensively over the past couple of months with different guests. And it's an honor to be talking to him because we've got a guest on the show tonight who our last show's guest was on the Sci-Fi Channel. This next guest, he's had a show on the Sci-Fi Channel. Ike, why don't you kick it off? We'll talk about John Zaffis.
That's right. Mr. Zaffis has over 43 years of experience studying and investigating the paranormal, and he's had the opportunity, interestingly enough, to work for and with his aunt and uncle, the famous Ed and Lorraine Warren. If you've seen any of the Conjuring movies, you're well familiar with this couple. That sent John off on his own path, looking for ghosts and hauntings and studying demonology under the Warrens. And his research has taken him throughout the U.S., Canada, England, Scotland, all kinds of cases all over the place. He's got hands-on experience investigating things with the clergy. He's obtained a lot of information and knowledge about the paranormal and is considered one of the foremost authorities in the field today. Why don't you take it from there, Todd?
Yeah, John has been featured on the sci-fi TV series, The Haunted Collector. Probably seen that over the years. John has collected many hundreds of possessed items, either given or sent to him by people wishing to get rid of him. He opened his own museum, the John Zaffis Paranormal Museum, back in 2004. We're excited to talk with him. John Zaffis, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight. I think we need to get you to unmute your mic. It's on, if you can get it in the bottom left. There we go.
You got me now?
We got you. Good to see you, John. Thanks for being on the show.
You're very welcome. Glad to be on.
Want to first talk to you about your museum. And I wanted to talk to you first off about your museum that you opened in 2004. Now, for many people who may have seen the Conjuring movies, and maybe you can clarify this, the Conjuring movies, Ed and Lorraine Warren had their own collection. Is your collection totally separate from theirs, or do you have pieces from theirs in your collection? How did that work?
It is two separate museums. Again, a lot of cases we've intermingled. There's probably one of the most famous artifacts I have is from the haunting in Connecticut.
Yeah.
There was a documentary done on that in a movie also. Again, there's, it's definitely two separate buildings. Absolutely. Two separate collections.
You mentioned a piece from the haunting in Connecticut. Were there any pieces that were presented to you where you thought, you know what, I'm just not taking that. I can't do it. Just weird pieces or things that you didn't feel comfortable with?
There's definitely is, even to this day with certain items. When you're working on cases now, one of the key things when we look at this, animals and people can be possessed, but items, land, houses, they have what I refer to more as attachment to them. So there's different categories when looking at the items. We have things that could have human spirit attached to them. You know, grandma could be just ticked off that somebody didn't get their particular item that she wanted, or we could be dealing with a ritual item. So in my collection, I think the ritual items are probably more something I'm guarded with than I am anything else. But to say I have a piece that is really unique, it gets difficult because so many of them have unique stories. They have different things to tell. And, you know, it gets kind of crazy when I start talking about it. You know, I did a book, Haunted by the Things You Love, and I did that with Rosemary Ellen Guiley. And as she was walking through the museum with me, she goes, John, she says, you can't even make your mind up on which is one of the most haunted items, which one means the most to you. She says, you keep jumping back and forth. She goes, you're getting more confused than I don't know what.
Well, you have a personal connection, I guess, after all of these items have been entrusted to you to keep them in your museum and to show them to the public. Obviously, you have a connection with them, right?
Yes, there is a connection. I feel more so that the fact of it is, you know, they have such unique stories most of the times. You know, when somebody calls me and they start talking about, okay, I believe I have, you know, a situation going on with this particular item, then they start telling you the story. And some of the things that, you know, intertwine in, you know, with the cases or with the items are things that I find more unique than anything else. Now, right at this point in time, my museum's a private museum. I do not have it open to the public.
Okay.
Hopefully sometime in the future, I can find a location where I can get it moved to and, you know, have it open up where people can come in and, you know, view a lot of the different things I've been collecting over the years.
So, John, let me ask you this question. People are, due to the movies, are familiar with the Warrens a lot more perhaps now than in the past. And I've got two questions for you about this. And let's start with the first one. Is this, as a relative, if you want to become a expert in the area or investigate, is it something that runs genetically in a family, or is it something simply that you can study and become adept at? What would you tell people who want to know about that kind of thing?
Well, I don't know if it's actually something, you know, that I could discredit as far as it being inherited. Because again, you know, we're looking at several generations just within my family. Something a lot of people didn't know, and I didn't know too, you know, quite a few years later, my grandfather used to be involved with a prayer chain that for his particular church, where they would do the prayers when people were having exorcisms or things done over them from a Roman Catholic perspective. Then my uncle got involved with it. I got involved with it. My son's a little bit involved with it, not that much. But so again, I look at it both ways. Today, the paranormal is just something that I think people are more interested in than they ever were before, because everybody wants that proof. Everybody wants to see Casper the Ghost. They want to see things levitate and get thrown around. So again, I look at it probably, to answer that, it's both actually.
I want to talk about a haunting in Connecticut, because that was of course, it was a movie, it was a documentary, and you played a role with the Warrens in that. And one thing I read or was discussed with me or heard before is you saw something in that investigation that terrified you. Can you recount what happened there?
Yes. It was an investigation we spent 9 weeks on investigating, and there was just so much that occurred and happened in there. One of the things that they described in the documentary was me witnessing something that was forming. It was huge. It had a terrible odor to it, and it was very murky. And it started literally descending down the staircase and coming towards me. And at that point in time, it said, do you know what they did to us? Do you know what they did to us? Well, it was the first time I've ever experienced something to that degree. Actually, August is the anniversary of when most of the stuff took place in a haunting in Connecticut, and I think we're going to be in 32 years or 33 years. So again, one of those types of cases that stay with you. But that reaffirms something with me. When you hear stories, we read things, people tell us different things, it's one thing. When you experience it, that changes you. Why? Because it's no longer a story, it's part of your reality. So therefore, you have to look at things and have, a better understanding of, wow, this stuff does occur. This stuff does happen. Once you witnessed it, it changes you.
What fascinates me is we've talked to several experts since we've started this show who have relayed to me what they've seen with apparitions. You mentioned this spirit or darkness that was descending down the stairs that spoke to you. Have you seen other apparitions, and what did they appear to you as that?
Well, the very first one I ever seen when I was 16 years old, at the foot of my bed, it was transparent. It was shaking its head back and forth. And, naturally I was scared at that point. I grew up in the 70s, so, I was a flower child. That's all I'm saying. But anyhow, again, went downstairs. I was telling my mom about it. She said, did it say or do anything? And I said, well, it just stood there and shook its head back and forth. And a few days afterwards, my grandmother passed away. So that made me really start to think about these things and go into that whole level, how they say, deceased loved ones come back to help people to cross over. Now, Ed Warren and my mother were twins, but they were night and day. My mother was petrified of the paranormal. My uncle, naturally, he, was out there investigating and everything. But that changed, again, that altered me. There was one time driving down a major throughway, and in the middle of the, where the divider was, there were these 3 black funnels, and they were forming into different shapes. Didn't say a word, but the person driving the car slammed on his brakes, pulled over he goes, did you just see that? I didn't say anything to him because I was curious to see, am I hallucinating or experiencing things? So again, that was witnessed. But over the course of the years, I can honestly say I've seen human spirit. I've seen, different things form in different shapes. So again, I take it all in with having those experiences and those encounters. Can I tell you exactly what they are? No, none of us can.
Right.
So let me ask you this question. Now, Ed and Lorraine, I believe, are both have
deceased,
passed on.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense, either directly from chatting about this or just simply a guess, about, do you have any idea how they would they appreciate the way they're being portrayed at the moment?
I would think so. I mean, I think the one thing that bothers me more than anything is, they really didn't get that opportunity to really, get to see, the movies and, everything that, was there. But again, too, there were several movies prior to The Conjuring, but I'll tell you what, Conjuring 1, I mean, that just opened up everything. The Perron family with that whole case and the different experiences. And now you have to remember, I go to see the movies. I have to, because I'll get hit with a ton of questions if I don't go to the theater and see them. So again, getting to know, and watch, the theatrical end of it is always interesting in comparison to what I know about a case or what I've experienced, or, because being around them, and people say, well, what was that like? What was that like? I don't know. They were my aunt and uncle and they chased ghosts. What do you want me to tell you? That's how I perceive it. And it's just something I was always used to.
But but it's your impression that obviously we accept that a certain amount of dramatization is going to go on in a Hollywood film.
Oh, yeah.
That things may be amped up here or there, but you feel like they would be, with that in mind, they'd be accepting and they wouldn't feel like they're being misrepresented in any bad way here?
I don't think they have been, to be honest with
you.
When I look at it and, I watch them and everything, I mean, they portray them, as characters in the movie, what they did, how, some of the cases they were involved with and everything. I think Conjuring 3, I sat there and laughed at a few of the different scenes when, I don't want to give too much away for anybody that hasn't seen it, but it was just hysterical watching him where he he would be upset or she would get upset. And, again, I go, okay, now that's the Anna Lorraine I know. So that's, again, watching the characters as they emerge and they come to the forefront. It's interesting to see it.
One thing I was unaware of until we had a guest on about a month ago. Her name was Laura Didio. And
Laura,
yeah, I was unaware of the Warrens' connection to the Amityville horror story. Obviously, you were aware of that. Were you involved in any shape or form with that?
Oh, gosh, no. The original case, no. How I wish I was. Oh, heck yeah. Again, Laura, I've known for many, many years, and we're more, I would say, more in contact today than, we were over the course of the years. But, again, another typical scenario with Amityville. I mean, who the hell didn't that scare? Yeah. I mean, come on, I was even scared. But, you watch that and everything. I did not have the opportunity to ever actually go in the house, but I have lectured with George several times before he passed away. Had an opportunity to speak to Kathy a couple of different times over, some of the different things. And today, again, one thing that, I'm happy about is the two boys are coming public and talking, about a lot of the events and a lot of the different things that transpired. Well, so again, it's one of those types of cases, where you just sit back and you go, man, I wish I could have been over there and got involved with that. But whoever knew Amityville was going to turn into being known worldwide, and here, what are we, 40 years later, whatever? It's amazing.
Well, so what are you working on these days? That's enough about the past. What are you doing now?
What am I doing now? Well, just trying to, keep safe with everybody else. I'm starting to get back out there again, lecturing. Went back out and started doing some investigations again. Again, we've been in the background over I call it being cloistered. I don't call it being in a lockdown. But anyhow, I got a wicked sense of humor. But, just been busy working on a couple of our books that we're trying to get done. So we've had the opportunity to do that and to be able to, get some of that lined up. And hopefully in the fall, I'm hoping book number 5 will come out.
And if folks want to find you on the web, John, where can they find you? What's the best way to find you and your books?
Best way to find me is johnzaffis.com. Also, my Paranormal Research Society website. There's a store on johnzaffis.com where you can purchase all the books and different things like that, or you can get them off of Amazon. They have the Audible ones and all the other different things I got out there today. So, but that would be the best way.
John, fascinating to hear of your stories and your collection working with the Warrens. We wish you continued success. Stay safe, and we hope to talk to you again in the future. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it too.
All right. Thanks, John. So, Ike, another common theme we're getting back and forth is Ed and Lorraine Warren. The name pops up several times on the show, and I know it has in, at least in the past couple of months.
Yeah, it's, I have to admit, I didn't even know who the Warrens were until the first Conjuring movie came out.
Right.
And no, it is an interesting, let me ask you this. A lot of these movies take place in the 70s and early 80s. My impression, it may be because of my age, but did it seem like this stuff was of more interest to the public back in the 70s than it was now?
Well, I have a bit of a theory on that. I think before the age of social media, it was word of mouth, people telling stories or books, like read this book. I remember the Amityville Horror. I read it in the 70s. I was a young teenager at the time. I read the book, saw the movie, and that word of mouth, we've kind of lost that these days. Everything now is word of Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. But that retelling of stories, I think that piqued people's interest. And I don't know, you probably too young to remember this. Pete probably remembers. But when the first Jaws movie came out, people trying to relay what Jaws was all about. I was creating it in my mind, and that piqued my interest in it. And the same with the paranormal and what was going on with Amityville horrors and stories like that.
Well, Pete, what do you make of that? Because I mean, again, this may be my age about when I first read about the Bermuda Triangle, for example. It was
that's another perfect example. There was a great book on that out there.
I remember when my parents took me to go see Jaws, and it scared me so much that I wouldn't even swim in a swimming pool. It still kind of affects me now. I won't go in the ocean.
Well, I mean, you'd say Jaws. What scared the hell out of me more than Jaws was the Bermuda Triangle. I used to ask my grandmother, well, if we go to these certain places in the Caribbean or whatever, or do we have to fly over the Bermuda Triangle? You know, I mean, it scared the hell out of me when I was a kid because you heard so much, but it was because of the book that was released, you know, and same with Amityville Horror, things like that.
Who was it? Was that Charles Berlitz?
That was Berlitz, yeah.
Yeah,
and
Charles Berlitz.
The thing that really gets me with the Bermuda Triangle is the Flight 19 story, and not even and even so when they went to go look for them, one of the big Dumbos blew up or something, and it never came back either.
Dumbo was a Disney movie. Yeah.
No, okay. No.
Thanks for playing. Okay.
One of the flying fortresses or whatever the plane was, they called it a big Dumbo. I know. I caught you.
You know, the theory I've heard on the Flight 19 was that the pilot was actually, they were disoriented, and the lead pilot on the mission was actually flying along the coast headed in the wrong direction. And when they thought they were coming up on the flight, when they were getting close to the landing strip, what they actually were getting into the water, and they ran out of fuel. That's the best theory I've heard on that. And obviously they went down one after the other, and all of them perished, of course. Nothing to be seen. They just haven't found the wrecks yet of the planes.
Well, and I think it is something about, you know, this is going to sound very old, but you know, you mentioned social media and how that's changed things, and way back, you know, people would have to go look something up or read a book, but in the same way that old movies were scarier because they didn't really show you the monster.
Yeah.
I think there was something about that era where you did have to sort of use your imagination, and our imaginations were terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, that's what worked for Jaws, I thought, is that originally Spielberg wanted to have the shark seen more, but they had so many problems with the shark that he did point of view and just let your mind run wild. And I think that worked for the movie a whole lot better than what he would have done.
Well, you didn't see the shark till halfway through the movie. You know, halfway through the movie is when you first really saw the shark.
Yeah, he built up all of that, all the fear and stuff in the first half.
Well, so here's a question: are younger generations ever going to have the same sort of mystical awe that maybe we grew up with? Given that, you know, these days you can spend 10 seconds and, you know, find a YouTube channel or 100 YouTube channels all about these topics. Is that sense of mystery ever?
I don't think so. The reason why I say that is, you know, we as a people have become desensitized because of you know, you can go and you can find whatever you're looking for now, whereas you couldn't do that before.
Google.
I really think that the best thing and the worst thing that ever happened was the internet.
Well, it certainly killed the music video industry, as I can know, because when we worked for a music video network back in the mid-90s, you didn't have Google or YouTube. You just had to look on your TV stations to watch the music videos, and that's how we made a living back then. Well, that wouldn't happen these days.
We didn't even have music or video.
There you go.
It was just a blank screen of white noise.
And you had to hum the tune yourself. And you liked it. All right.
Well, you remember when you wanted to catch your favorite song, you had to grab your cassette deck, and record it off the radio.
Yeah. Those were the days, kids. All right. Let's move on to the news.
And remember, stay off my lawn.
Stay off my lawn, Pete. Okay, here's a look at some of the weird, tantalizing, and just plain bizarre stories posted from our partners at the Full Spectrum Project. Pete, you know all about them, right?
Yeah, I heard there's some pretty nice guys over there.
Okay. Ike, take a look at this. I'm going to show you a picture. Well, actually, Nathan's going to put the picture up. This is an intriguing photo. Pete posted this, and there's a weird caption in it because there's a guy named Mark Cumming who posted this on a Facebook group called Love My Ozarks. And it's the legend of the Blue Man of the Ozarks. And Mark says that his friend Rick Gunter, a dedicated historian of Ozark history, posted this photograph several months ago and says it shows Solomon Saul Collins, who successfully brought down a Bigfoot in 1865 with his rifle in either Ozark or Douglas County, Missouri, in the Spring Creek area. So there you go. There's the picture. They're dating it back to 1865. We didn't have Photoshop available then. Ike, your thoughts on this?
I mean, like everything, I would like to believe in this. And I don't think it's totally outside the realm of possibility that some kind of biped thingy guy or homeless man is living out there. I'm getting a little cynical about how many more fuzzy, blurry photos are we going to get?
Give them a break. It was a camera from 1865. Okay. It was probably swaying too, because it was dead. But, when the camera is a long exposure, I think they had to leave it open for like 20 seconds back then.
Well, don't forget too, you have that bird in there that's etching it into stone.
Yeah. You can see why I'm cynical. It's like, even now, these are the excuses.
Well, we've determined on the last show that Bigfoot they're actually people who are unshaven with long hair who don't take baths, which I believe there are a lot of them living in the woods. Ike has admitted to possibly dating a few of them at one time. So there you go.
Pete.
I remember that story.
Okay, that was a good story. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up this show. Ike, you want to remind folks where we are on social media?
I so want to do that. Thank you. We're on social media. We're on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And is that it?
That's it. Find us as the Road Beyond Podcast. We appreciate you all being here. Pete, thanks for being here as always.
Thank you.
All right. We will see you all next week on the Road Beyond.